Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by golden fields, there lived a merchant named Aryan. Aryan was a hard-working man. Every single day, he would wake up before sunrise, load heavy bags of salt onto his donkey's back, and walk many miles to the market to sell it. The journey was long and tiring, but Aryan never complained. He believed that the harder he worked, the more successful he would become. His donkey's name was Kolu. Kolu was a simple, quiet animal. He never rushed. He never panicked. He just walked slowly and steadily, step by step, day after day. One morning, Aryan loaded the heaviest bags he had ever carried onto Kolu's back. The bags were so heavy that even Aryan felt tired just looking at them. Kolu looked at the bags, then looked at the road ahead, and began walking without a single complaint. On the way to the market, they had to cross a small river. The stones were slippery, and the water was cold. Aryan carefully stepped across, but suddenly, Kolu slipped and fell into the shallow water. The heavy bags soaked in the river. When Kolu stood back up, something surprising happened. The bags felt lighter, much lighter. The salt had dissolved in the water. Kolu noticed this immediately. He shook himself dry and kept walking, feeling relieved. Aryan was frustrated. He had lost a lot of salt that day. He earned less money at the market. On the way back home, he was angry and exhausted. But the next morning, Aryan filled the bags again, even heavier than before, trying to make up for yesterday's loss. When they reached the same river, Kolu stopped for a moment. He looked at the water. He looked at the heavy bags. Then, very slowly and very deliberately, he lay down in the river. Aryan's eyes went wide. He shouted, "Kolu, what are you doing? Get up! Get up right now!" But Kolu simply lay there, calm and peaceful, as the salt melted away into the river. When the bags were light enough, he stood up, shook the water off, and continued walking toward the market as if nothing had happened. Aryan was furious. But that evening, sitting outside his small house under the stars, he couldn't stop thinking about what Kolu had done. The donkey hadn't worked harder. He hadn't carried more. He had simply noticed something and used it. One accidental lesson had become a deliberate choice. Aryan thought to himself, Kolu lost salt. Yes, but Kolu also arrived at the market without exhaustion. His legs were steady. His breathing was calm. Meanwhile, I arrived sweating, aching, barely able to stand. The next day, Aryan decided to do something different. Instead of loading more salt to make up for his losses, he went to the village market early in the morning and looked carefully at what people were buying. He noticed that sponges were selling fast. Sponges absorbed water. Sponges became heavier when wet. He smiled slowly. He thought, if Kolu wants to lie in the river, then let Kolu carry sponges. The next morning, Aryan loaded Kolu with bags of sponges instead of salt. When they reached the river, Kolu, as expected, slowly and confidently lay down in the water. But this time, the sponges soaked up the water and became twice as heavy. When Kolu tried to stand, the weight pressed down on him like never before. He struggled and huffed and finally pulled himself up, dripping and confused. Aryan watched and said gently, Kolu, my old friend, Today you taught me something, and today I taught you something back. From that day, something changed between them. Aryan stopped trying to simply work harder. He began to think before he acted. He studied the road before they walked it. He checked the weather before he loaded the bags. He asked the market sellers what people needed before he decided what to carry. He planned his route to avoid the worst of the heat. He rested Kolu at the right times so the donkey stayed strong for the full journey. And Kolu learned too. He stopped trying to trick his way out of hard work. Instead, he walked with purpose, conserved his energy on the flat road, and stepped carefully on the difficult paths. Together, they began arriving at the market earlier than anyone else. The goods were fresh, the donkey was strong, and Aryan was calm and clear-headed enough to negotiate better prices. Within a few months, Aryan was earning more than he ever had during his years of exhausting, mindless effort. One evening, an old neighbor saw Aryan sitting peacefully on his porch, looking rested and content. The neighbor asked Aryan, "What is your secret? You used to look like a broken man every evening. Now you look like someone who barely worked all day." Aryan smiled quietly and said, "I used to think success meant suffering more than everyone else. I thought if I carried more weight, walked more miles, and slept less than my neighbor, I would win. But I was wrong. A donkey taught me the truth. It is not the one who sweats the most who wins. It is the one who thinks before he sweats." The neighbor laughed and asked, "A donkey taught you that?" Aryan nodded. "Yes. First he taught me by accident. Then I taught him on purpose. And somewhere in the middle of all that, we both became wiser." He looked over at Kolu, who was eating quietly in the yard, completely unbothered, completely at peace. Aryan said softly, "That donkey never read a single book. He never attended a single class. But he understood something that took me years to learn. Effort without direction is just exhaustion. But a small amount of effort, pointed exactly in the right place, can change everything." The stars were out now. The village was quiet, and Aryan, for the first time in many years, felt no need to rush tomorrow. He knew that the morning would come, and he would be ready, not because he had worked himself to the bone the night before, but because he had rested well, thought clearly, and planned wisely. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. And don't forget to subscribe to the Bright Tales for more stories that make you think, feel, and grow. Thank you for being here with us. Until next time, stay wise, stay steady, and stay bright.